to do with their work and how they treat clients, how they treat the audience and that sort of thing. So ITI tries to raise the awareness among its members of these issues. And we work with other translation departments as well in universities who train translators to help them with our members go out and teach the developing professionalism courses very often. We've done that with Westminster and with other universities in Portsmouth as well. So that's very much ITI's role, is to highlight these issues and to instill this sense of what it is to be a professional translator and interpreter. Another aspect of our work is to try to work with large buyers of translation services and interpreting services to get them to understand what the parameters are around delivering translation and delivering interpreting services. So we trying to work, for example, with the Ministry of Justice down south in conjunction with the court interpreting situation. Obviously we haven't been particularly successful so far because the Ministry of Justice feels that they have their own way of designing an interpreting service which is actually not particularly compatible with the way the interpreting should be delivered. But we're working with other bodies to highlight to the Ministry of Justice why for example, their tiering system of allocating interpreters to different courts on the basis of their abilities is not a good idea and all this sort of thing. So ITI's role there, in conjunction with other partners, is to work with the end client, and that I guess highlights the sort of the focal point that ITI occupies in this translation universe that I mentioned in the abstract. ITI really is a place where lots of different communities come in and meet together, and we try to facilitate this communication. And I was at a conference at the Association of Translation Companies conference last September, and I don't know if people have heard of Yost, etc. It's not a name that's familiar to people. Yost is a translator based in the United States, commercial translator, freelance translator, translated from Chinese into German, I think, and also from English into German. And he's very big on technology. He does lots of research into what technologies translators use, translation software programs they use, and tries to keep people abreast through various newsletters of the latest developments in that sort of area. And what Yost was talking about at that conference was the fact that translation is big news. Everybody, the world's talking about translation, and we should be really, really happy about that. You only have to look at Google News every morning. You have an alert on the search term translation. Every morning you'll see a range of new articles from the world's media all about translation, and then you read some of these articles and you realise they're talking about Google Translate. And Yost's point was, our natural reaction is to throw our hands up in horror and say they don't understand us. Why do these people not understand us? But actually, our response should be to celebrate this and say, yes, this is great. Translation is important, and Google Translate is actually facilitating communication. Google Translate is a wonderful tool for a lot of people, not for professional translators. And, please don't think that this is what we use, but there is definitely a place for Google Translate. And by the way, if you think you can do this, well, look what we use, and look what we can produce, and to try and harness this love of translation that is being produced at the moment, is being exhibited throughout the world at the moment, and use it for our own benefit. And that will require us for all the different aspects of the translation universe, from the freelancers to the translation companies, to the academics who teach translation and translation studies, to give out the same message that professional translation is the key to unlocking communication. And Google Translate, while it can certainly serve a purpose and maybe bring lovers together who don't speak each other's language, that was a radio programme that I was involved in last October for BBC's CLIP, the World Service programme CLIP, which is the technology programme, goes out throughout the world. And again, they were interested in machine translation, but their aspect, their hook that they'd found was they had a lady in Russia and a man in the United States who'd met online, and they were using Google Translate to form a relationship. And over the course of 3 or 4 years, they sort of gradually communicated with each other more and more, and they ended up getting married. But this is how Click, the technology program, was selling the benefits of translation and Google Translate. So, as a translator, what is your response to that? And as sort of what's ITI's response to that? Do we say, oh well, that's not really translation. That's it's just sort of laughable, really. What Google Translate produces, or do we say, yes, fantastic, isn't translation wonderful? We do this all the time. We can get paid to do this. So and encourage people to think more about translation in the way we do it, rather than the way sort of Google is doing it at the moment. So really, that's what I see as ITI's main mission, is bringing together all these different groups, providing them with a platform, events, so that the different groups can learn from each other and communicate with each other, so that we can make this message and put this message out to the world, that the translation, the professional translation, is really what keeps the world turning. And I hope now Sarah will be able to tell us really about how we do that specifically with professional development.
Even David's talk. So hopefully now you get to what the title could be. But our next speaker will be Sarah, and she's going to talk about CPD and career development. So welcome, Sarah. And also Sarah is the Vice Chair of Institute of Translation and Interpreting. Shall I leave it to you to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yes, could we get the PowerPoint up? While we're doing that.
While we're waiting then, perhaps we will take a couple of questions
Yeah,
first then. Otherwise it will take a bit of time. I was
That's
actually planning that we will take the questions after the three talk, but now since we need a bit of time.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we can maybe take a couple of questions now, certainly again afterwards. We were planning.
Yeah.
I wanted to give you a very brief introduction to what ITI does, but Sarah will talk in more detail about professional development, and Jenny, who is an ITI member as well, will talk about sort of starting out as a freelance translator and all the sort of different things that you need to be thinking about around that. But does anybody have any questions really about ITI that we could take now, or do you think, would you like more time to sort of be thinking about them during Sarah's talk? Okay, well, if anybody thinks of anything that they want to talk to me about as well later on during the breaks, then please do feel free to grab it. Yeah.
Thinking perhaps for the benefit of the students, if you could at some point talk about how people would go about getting membership.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Okay.
Okay, so Sarah.
Thank you. So I'm Sarah Griffin-Mason. I came into translation, as you were saying, I sort of fell into translation. I went to live in Uruguay, and I was working as an editor for people who were non-native speakers translating from Spanish into English, so I was correcting. And then as my Spanish improved, I became a translator. And I worked there for about 10 years, and that was how I came into translation. Moved back to the UK thinking, great, I'm so brilliant, I'm going to have loads of work, I'm going to have no problem getting jobs. And it was a completely different market. In the UK, clients want you to have an accepted qualification of some sort to start with before they'll take you onto their books, and experience. They want both of those. And then I joined the ITI because I was on my own, I was a freelance, I was pretty lonely, it's a big empty world out there. And I thought, right, by joining the ITI I can meet other professional translators, find out how it works, and get myself started. And it's been a brilliant experience, it's been fantastic. And I found that there's definitely, as Ewan says, there's a generational thing. My generation and the generations before, many of them did sort of come to translation via other routes. But I find that the young people coming up have a much more planned career path of how they're going to study translation, work in translation, and then freelance, probably. But, and here's the big but, it's an unregulated profession. Okay? People get jobs dependent on the need and happening to be in the right place at the right time. So as a freelance translator, you've got to box clever. You've got to think for yourself where you're going to go in your career. You've got to think for yourself where you're going to find your clients, what areas are going to be profitable as a translator and what aren't. And that's quite a big ask, really. So when I started out, I did my master's in translation because I hadn't even got a language degree. I've got an archaeology degree, which didn't really help. And after that, I went into marketing myself. And I realised that as a freelancer, and in the world in general, you now need to think constantly of updating your skills, updating your knowledge, keeping yourself ahead of the game if you're going to be successful. Okay, and as a result of that, I've become more and more involved in ITI. I joined what was an education and training committee because I thought there was a great need for training for translators and there wasn't much provision. And ITI is working towards providing training or guiding members on training and how to keep developing and be successful, frankly. Okay, so that's my background. At the moment, since March, I've been working half-time at the University of Portsmouth, teaching specialised translation and professional aspects of translation on the MA there. But the rest of the time, I'm still a freelance translator. And because of my experience, most of what I do is related to non-governmental organisations and education and related areas. So not a great profit-making department. And as part of my scheme, I've decided that I went to the Association of Translation Companies conference, and there was a presentation there of where the lucrative areas of translation are. And it was medicine, legal, multinational entities, patents, and sort of science and technology, and medicine. And I sort of looked at them and I thought, I need to have a profitable sideline because education and NGOs, it's okay, but it doesn't pay very well. So I decided medicine was going to be my thing. And it's through my search for training for myself that I started to get a better idea of how it works for everybody else. Okay. So the fact is now in the professional world that professional careers are not linear. Okay? If you go into accountancy, maybe it is, and you go up through your grades. But most professions now, it isn't like that. Most people will have 2 or 3 professions from when they start out to when they finish. And it's up to you to train yourself up and keep abreast of things. Because you realise as you go through life that there are several times, redundancies happen. Overnight, people who feel they're safe and secure, they will suddenly have to do something else. So you've got to keep your skills up so that you've got skills to offer in that situation. And it's professional bodies who can help their members to make sure that they're in a strong position. Okay? I went to a meeting of the Professional Associations Research Network, and this has all sorts of professional associations from structural engineers across to accountants, across to information scientists, anything, and they're all facing the same thing. Okay, this is a worldwide thing that you have to keep yourself up to date. Okay? People are living longer, they're working longer. Since I started as a primary teacher many years ago, I'm now going to have to work till I'm 67, possibly 68, whereas everybody used to stop at 65. We're working longer. Okay? Careers are all over the place, and new challenges come up. When I was at school, there was one computer in the school which Jamie Davis could use, no one else could, because he was the only person who knew not to break it. Okay? And now everybody has a computer, and children too are using tablets. Things change. And new challenges come up. Translation technologies are constantly advancing, whereas our older members will talk about things being sent on paper, delivered, posted, and then you typed it and you sent it back, or you dictated it, and somebody else typed it because you didn't need to type it. Everybody types now. Everybody has to be able to use basic tools, basic word processing. Things change and you have to keep abreast of it. And lifelong learning is something throughout Europe that is talked about all the time. You do have to constantly learn. And you have to be adaptable to be successful. So, for ITI, we have so many languages, so many language pairings, so many subject specialisms. We have people specialising in yachting catalogues, and that's all they do for their whole career. We have other people who translate research articles, and we're trying to think of how to guide people on training across all these subjects and all these languages. So we have a very broad definition of CPD, continuing professional development, which is basically, yes, you should be doing it, it's a professional good practice, but for each individual, what they need will be different. And we can't say to them, everybody has to do a course of study with the university of whatever, because it won't be appropriate for all our members. But they're all at different positions in different places. So we try to provide guidance for them. What we recommend to our members is a minimum of 5 days of CPD a year. I think we sort of looked at parallel professions, and we found that most serious professions will do 5 days of CPD a year. So we thought, okay, we'll start with that. And 5 days, when you look at a day of a training course, it's normally 6 hours of heads down work. So we thought, okay, fair enough, we'll take that and we'll say 30 hours of CPD. Because we have members who go from newly qualified students up to people who've been working in the profession for 30 or more years. And they've got very different ability to pay for training. They've got very different training needs. And so we have a very broad range. I mean, reading the New England Journal of Medicine online can be CPD. And you can put down, I think it's an hour reading that. Going to a very nice high-level course, Chris Durbin telling you how to go and work the room and recruit yourself new clients, that also counts as CPD. So it's immensely broad. And this confuses our members sometimes. They're sort of, how do I enter this as CPD? And say, well, how long did you do it for? I did it for 2 hours. Enter it as 2 hours. It's so simple, it fools people. So you plan your own CPD for your position in your career. And what we have is we try, as far as we can, to provide some CPD for our members. We try to guide them towards CPD that will be useful to them, and through resources and recommendations. And we have a logging facility on the website so that people can keep a record and show what they've done. And then on their profile, it shows that they've done their CPD for the year. So clients coming in and looking for people can go, this person's obviously keeping themselves up to date. It says so. Okay. Right. Over the years, when we've looked at what our members want and what our members need, we've worked out that there are basically 6 areas that people need input in. Language skills, obviously, that goes without saying. And the language skills category can include things such as your holiday in your L2 or L1 country. As long as you're reading the papers, that counts as CPD. It's the time you put in. Translation skills, most of our members, by the time they're MITI, they should be pretty good. But there are still things you can learn. And you can learn, even when your translation is very good, you may well find that your writing in your target language could do with work. I was at a copywriting class, a Guardian masterclass last Tuesday, and there were 4 ITI members there learning about copywriting, because although they can translate, they didn't feel that their English, they were all English, into English people, they didn't feel that their writing was really quite professional level maybe, and they could do with a bit of support there. Interpreting skills, obviously, because we're the Institute of Translation and Interpreting. Subject knowledge, and that's massive. We've got networks covering an immense range of subjects, and some of the networks, like the medical network, do arrange training that is really, really good, appropriate level training for members, and others aren't quite so active. So we try to find other providers who can cover subject knowledge, mostly other professional entities. Business skills, again, this is a generational thing. A lot of our earlier members were people who had institutional or in-house translating jobs, and now those are increasingly rare. So you need to learn how to set up your business. You need to know about marketing yourself. You need to know about all the things that you have to have in place for your accounting, for your making sure that everything ticks over properly. And then finally, professional contribution. And we put that in because we really believe that ITI is a community of practice, that we need to encourage good practice by doing good practice ourselves. And so our members, if you mentor someone who's a new member and you're an experienced member, that counts as professional contribution. Working on one of our committees and putting back into the organisation counts as professional contribution. So we try to build ourselves up and strengthen ourselves and our community as we go along. So loads of things to cover, and we sort of get a bit of head spins when we try to think how we're going to do this. Okay, so So like I said, we've got loads of people from lots of different backgrounds, lots of subject areas and expertise. So yeah, we cover an immensely broad range of subjects. And all of these things can count on your CPD log. So there's courses and conferences, but we're doing a massive conference in May, which I hope you've heard about, in April. Sorry, I'm going to turn up to the wrong place, wrong time. In Newcastle, which is 3 days now, isn't it? 3-day event.
1 day masterclasses and 2 days.
Yeah. So that is a brilliant opportunity for networking, for workshops, etc. And people can buy it in chunks. You don't have to come to the whole thing. You can come just for a day. So that's a wonderful opportunity to get a lot of translators together, a lot of whom are sort of leading professionals, and a lot of experts speak at it as well. So that can be really good. But for some of our members, that's out of their price range, so they can't afford to do that. There's also things like in-house training and visits. A lot of we have regional groups who are not language-based. They tend to do more social events, and some do more professional training, but a lot of them are social things. And they'll do visits to places. Our local group has gone to the local Viola recycling installation, and it was a tour, all in English. But I think everybody who went on that trip, whether they did technical translations of waste plants or not, learnt something that they may well have to apply at some point. So visits count, visits to libraries or technical installations, anything that relates to your work can count as CPD. And obviously reading journals, keeping yourself up to date in your subject matter is key, absolutely key. Because you need to be writing at the level that your reader wants to be reading. So when I was doing a lot of work on medical journals, I read a lot of AMA publications and New England Journal of Medicine, because that was the level my writing had to try to be at. I was always edited, I must add that as a proviso. I wasn't writing at that level, I was edited. But you have to head in the right direction. Conferences actually in your area. For me, it was the European Medical Writers Association. They had lots of conferences, and if you go to those, you're being educated at the level of a writer in that language, not a translator, a writer. You need to be aware of that as well. And there's some of our members have been members of the British Medical Association and other entities where they get training that the professionals get, which is an excellent way to go about being a specialist. Universities do lots of courses, distance learning courses. We, at the University of Portsmouth, we have something like 4 times as many distance learners as we have classroom-based students now. So it's increasingly viable to learn distance learning. And even the local authorities, I did an Italian course, just so that I could do conversational Italian. That counts. It adds another string to my bow. Online tutors and e-learning. You've probably heard about massive open online courses, the MOOCs that are popping up everywhere. And a lot of the US universities, and particularly Harvard and places like that, Princeton, they do these, and they're very good quality courses. And I had to do a translation about a gastric bypass, and I thought, yeah, gastric bypass, fine. But there's 65 million different ways of doing a gastric bypass. So I had to go on and look at videos of gastric bypasses, because I'd got a picture of the shape of the stomach after the bypass had happened, and from that I had to work out, because I had it in Spanish, which type of gastric bypass it had been. And I could do that by watching people operating online from a MOOC, a mass open online course. So there's immense potential there, and research work, of course, because I think ITI is very much a practice-focused organisation, but we're aware that we need to be keeping an eye on what's happening in the research world as well. So that can count. Then a lot of our members will go out, as Ewan was saying, they'll talk to their local primary school or their local secondary school. They're going to their local university and talk about things that you have to consider as a professional translator. And a lot of people write blogs or articles, reviews, and put that out there. And there's the committee work and internal work of ITI. So why are we so keen on it? Why does it matter to us? Well, we want to be, and I think we are, the leading professional body for translators and interpreters. And at the moment we're very much UK based, but there is an international section and we are growing. And I do believe that we should be sort of something solid in a very movable world. Because, like we say, we're unregulated, things change. The Ministry of Justice completely rocked the interpreting sector. Things can come from outside, but we need to be strong and we need to be able to defend ourselves as a professional group. And we believe that to be strong, we need to have the best professionals as our members, and to be the best professionals, we need to have the people who are interested in keeping themselves up to date, training themselves, and being the go-to best professionals. So it benefits us for our members to do CPD, and it benefits our members to do it too. So it's a sort of virtuous cycle that hopefully will go on up, so we can all be well respected. And this is on our website, because again we have generational issues. We have people who've been doing their job for 30 years, they know everything there is to know about it, and they do not need to know anything else. So we sort of say to them, you know, if you can show to your customers that, you know, you've done a course on whatever the latest technology is, I don't know, 3D printing, let's say, then they're going to say, this person, they've been working 30 years and they're still keeping themselves up to date. It looks good. It convinces your clients that you are the person they want, not that you're back with the golf ball typewriter technology, okay? And clients are very impressed if you know a bit about their business, rather than just sit there and say, you know, I'm going to do a translation. It's good to be able to talk in their language and talk about what they're talking about, know about their sectors. So that's what it says on our website to our members, to encourage them. Okay. And the key elements, I would say, of what ITIs offer is, we have a course setting up as a freelance translator that at the moment runs twice a year. And what that is, it's for people, mainly people who are fresh from an MA or similar, and or if they've come in, they're career changers who are coming into translation from another career, and we help them over, I think it's 8 weeks, isn't it, they're starting up as a freelance translator. We help them with the essentials of setting up a business, which I think is going to be the content of Jenny's talk, so I won't go into that. But what the course has, that I think probably no other course has, is that we've got 8 tutors who are all proven professional freelance translators who have done this, and they know what has to be done and what can be sort of prioritised and what else. And so all the people on the course get direct feedback, personal feedback from people who know what they're talking about. So it's a wonderful course, and that's one of our core products, I'd say. Okay. We also offer mentoring. At the moment, the mentoring that we offer is generally through our language networks. And what happens is that anyone who's a member of that language network will send out a call once a year, and we'll say to them, you know, experienced members, are any of you prepared to mentor a new translator? And then we'll put out a call to new translators, and we'll try to match them up in terms of which subject areas they're interested in. And the idea is that over a period of 6 months, that they do 6 short translations, and it's very much a am I good enough sort of thing for the new translators, because they worry that they're not good enough. And the experienced translator will use translations they've actually done professionally and that the client has accepted. So they are fit for purpose because they were accepted professional work. So that's our sort of baseline for that. And over the 6 months, the new person will do 6 very short translations, 500 words, and get direct feedback on their strengths and weaknesses. And it's amazing how often our students are extremely good, and they don't need much, they just need the confidence. And occasionally you do find people who really shouldn't be doing it, and you have to take the lights. You might not think. But most of them are really, really good. But on the basis of that, because the Spanish network has been doing that for about 5 years, we've now decided that a lot of our more experienced members are saying, but actually I'd like to be mentored because I've done this sort of translation for so long, and I'd really like to branch out into that. Do you think I could pair myself up with someone else? So we're currently working on a system whereby people can offer themselves as mentors for a subject specialism or for language or for whatever skills, and then our members will be able to find their own mentors, and nobody has to be in the middle. So that's the plan. So there's lots of ideas, and our interpreting department are developing a whole new parallel to the starting up as a freelance translator for interpreters, where there'll be a lot of mentoring input as well. Okay, we also offer our members the international calendar of events on the website. There's a professional development tab, And on that, you've got all these little things, to the conference, to CPD, all sorts of different things. And the calendar of events, you can click on it and see what translation events are going on. And I believe other entities enter their own data on there. So, you get a lot of meetings, conferences from other universities, from other entities on there. And that's really helpful if you're planning your CPD. And of course the bulletin. I put that one on because it's prize-winning magazine. And a lot of our members write